2024 saw unprecedented protests across North American universities in response to the Hamas attack into Israel on October the 7th, 2023. Many of these protests led to campus disruptions, and they drew a significant amount of scrutiny from students, the media, universities themselves, and almost all levels of government across North America. On March the 9th, 2025, a former graduate student and activist at Columbia University was arrested by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, aka ICE, at his university-owned apartment. Columbia had become a media hotbed for these types of campus protests, and the student arrested, Mahmoud Khalil, was one of the key figures during these protests as he was directly negotiating with the university administration during the campus protests on behalf of the protesters. This arrest has been significantly controversial, with some people viewing it as part of the Trump administration's crackdown on campus activism, free speech, anti-wokeism, or simply just anti-Israel sentiment. Of course, others see it as an infringement on free speech or perhaps immigration rights, while others feel that this is a correct action due to the alleged terrorist affiliations of the protesters. Around the same time, the Trump administration has canceled around $400 million in federal funding to Columbia, alleging that the university failed to protect Jewish students from harassment during these protests, and Columbia has responded by committing to combating anti-Semitism and implementing new policies, but it is yet to be seen exactly what they are going to change. Khalil faces numerous allegations, including glorifying Hamas, glorifying the October the 7th attack, circulating social media posts criticizing Zionism, being openly anti-Western or anti-Western civilization, and facilitating and supporting terrorist propaganda. He is also a key member of the Columbia University Apartheid Divest Group, which advocates for the university's divestment from Israeli institutions, or specifically Israeli institutions of higher education, and some feel that this is explicitly anti-Semitic. Trump has said that this is the first arrest of many to come, suggesting that they have other targets in mind, but again, this raises significant concerns regarding free speech, freedom of protest, etc. An added layer of complexity is that Khalil is not an American citizen. He is a lawful permanent resident attending Columbia and has a green card, but he does not have full American citizenship. Therefore, Marco Rubio stated that the administration will be revoking visas or green cards, which Khalil has, of Hamas supporters in America so that they can explicitly be deported, and further claims that the Department of Homeland Security can initiate deportation proceedings against green card holders, specifically for a broad range of alleged criminal activity, including supporting a terror group. Since Hamas is a designated terror group, this is the obvious justification from the Trump administration's point of view. From my research, it is clear that green card holders, despite being protected under the U.S. Constitution, are susceptible to being removed if they violate their status in the U.S. The Immigration and Nationality Act is a set of immigration laws, and it contains a provision that says that a non-citizen whose, quote, presence or activities in the United States the Secretary of State has reasonable ground to believe would have a potentially serious adverse foreign policy consequence for the United States is deportable. In other words, under the Act, green card holders do not need to be convicted of a crime to be deported. For example, if there are reasonable grounds to believe they are engaged in or likely to engage in terrorist activities, they can be deported. Khalil's lawyer states that his detention is illegal, and he was chosen as an example to stifle entirely lawful dissent in violation of the First Amendment, and one cannot be simply stripped of their residency even by the Secretary of State. It also isn't clear to me exactly what constitutes reasonable ground as stated in the Immigration and Nationality Act, and this clearly must be a key component of the Trump administration's rationale when this case is eventually brought in front of the courts. This does raise questions about the rights of students, the rights of immigrants, the right to protest, the rights of universities to quell said protests, and the rights of government if they deem immigrant students to be a threat to the democratic fabric of America. There are various legal challenges underway, so it is not exactly clear to me what the correct course of action is, despite the language of the Act, which is ambiguous and clearly open to interpretation in the legal context. This series of actions does have a sense of political martyrdom or the targeting of an individual specifically for political speech, which could be viewed as extremely problematic depending on your position on various Palestinian perspectives and Israeli perspectives. Regardless, this is a legal and human rights minefield that I expect to be significantly challenged in the court system, and indeed we've already seen this. There's definitely more to come in this story, and I hope to cover this soon, so please let me know if you like this format of a less produced, more casual news coverage as it relates to higher education, instead of my typical produced videos on a particular topic. As always, stay tuned to Humanitas Academia for more content on college and university education.